This week we're studying Parashat Miketz, and we're studying the holy words of Rabbi Shimshon Pincus. And as a short introduction, Joseph finds himself in this week's Torah portion in jail. And he finds himself there after being set up by his master's wife. And he's been there for a complete 10 years, and he is supposed to be freed now. However, since he put his trust in the butler, in Paro's butler, who was an inmate with him, told him to remember him and to mention him, to interpret his dream to Paro, Hashem decreed that he was going to spend another 2 years in jail. Take a look at your screen. Chapter 41, verse 1. This is the first verse in this week's Torah portion. It says, Vayi Miketz, and behold, Miketz Shnatayim Yamim, at the end of 2 years, Ufar'o cholem v'ineh omed hal ayor. 2 full years. It was 2 years to the day, Shnatayim Yamim, literally. And Paro dreams about that he is standing on the Nile. And the Torah goes on to explain the exact dreams, the 2 dreams he had, with the stocks eating one another, with the cows eating one another. These were the dreams that Paro had. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh tells us, he calls our attention to the way the Torah wrote this verse of Paro actually dreaming it. The verse didn't say, Vayachalom Paro, that Paro dreamt. Rather, it says, Ufar'o cholem, in the inverse. That, again, in Hebrew, in English, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. Is it that Paro dreamt or dreamt Paro? Right? So in English, it doesn't really make sense either way, but in Hebrew, every single word and every single letter in their position mean a lot. So it says Ufar'o cholem rather than Vayachalom Paro, implying, says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, that Paro's been dreaming these dreams for over 2 years, day in, day out, over and over and over. Just he was forgetting them every day. Every time he dreamt it, he kept on forgetting it. And only after 2 years of dreaming those dreams did he wake up one morning and he remembered them. That's what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says. So if Pincus says it's a beautiful, beautiful interpretation. Because we see from here that really Joseph all along was only supposed to be in jail for 10 years, and he was supposed to leave jail and raise to greatness via interpreting Paro's dreams. And exactly on the day of 10 years being in jail, he should have come out. However, he was postponed 2 years because of putting his trust in the butler. And how do we know it was postponed? Because Paro was anyways dreaming that dream that was supposed to take him out from day one, from the end of the 10 years. And Hashem was the one who didn't let Paro remember until it was time for Paro to actually call him out. It's a brilliant pshat, absolutely brilliant. And it fits really, really nice with the verses, with the first verse of, and it happened to be 2 years, so it happened to be 2 years. Yeah, because Paro's been dreaming that dream for 2 years now. It's really, really amazing. So that was a nice tidbit that Rav Pincus shares with us at the beginning of this week's Torah portion. But then he moves on. He moves on now to when Joseph leaves. Joseph is taken out of jail when he's 30 years old, and he interprets the dreams to Paro. He gives him a plan how to avoid a complete annihilation and destruction of his people, of his country, of his economy, with this upcoming famine that was coming. And he tells him that he has to appoint a wise and trustworthy man to deploy his plan, the plan that Joseph told him about. Well, you're going to have much extra produce, so save all the extra, and then you'll have it for then. Put them in storehouses, fine. So Paro then looks at Joseph and says, well, who can I ever choose or select that would be better than you? And he appoints Joseph as the viceroy of Egypt, the second in command of the entire country. He gives him Osnat to marry. They have their 2 children all before the famine starts. And the 7 years of plenty pass very nicely. Abundance in the land. and they stored all their extra produce, and then the famine starts. And everyone comes to Paro crying, we're dying, we need food, what are we going to do? So Paro said, go speak to Joseph. And Joseph's the one in control anyways. They come to Joseph and they tell him, again, we're starving, we're dying of food. So what does Joseph answer? He says, we warned you, which is true. We warned you that a famine was coming. Well, why didn't you prepare it accordingly? So they say, well, we did prepare. We did store some grain and produce and everything, but it all spoiled. Well, Joseph said, well, my stuff's not spoiled. And in truth, Rashi tells us that anyone who tried to save stuff, everything spoiled. Only what Joseph kept lasted. He stored it in a very strategic and smart way. Obviously, he had the help of Hashem to bless him in setting up those storehouses and mills and whatnot. But they came and they said, okay, well, what do we do now? So he started selling them food. Sold them. They had no more money. He said, okay, give me your livestock. They needed more. Okay, give me your property. Give me your houses, your fields, everything they owned, your gold, your silver, everything they owned, they ended up giving to Joseph. Then they come and they say, well, we have nothing else to give and we're dying of hunger. What do we do? At that point, what Joseph does is he tells them, okay, I'll feed you, I'll spare your lives, but now you're slaves to me. And that's exactly what happened. Joseph acquired the entire world through providing food for anyone who came to him, acquiring them as slaves because they had nothing else to give. Later on in next week's Torah, the end of this week's Torah portion or next week's Torah portion, then Joseph says, well, what use is there to have so many slaves? He ends up telling everyone, okay, I'll grant you your freedom, but forevermore you need to give 20% of all your earnings back to Paro forever. So we're talking about something major over here. And even Jacob had to send his own children down to Egypt to get food because the famine was in the entire region, and literally that was the only populated region of the world at that time. So here's the question. Rav Pincus asks, why does the Torah go into so much detail in explaining the famine and the selling of the food that Joseph does and acquiring everyone as slaves? Like, why go so into it? Okay, we know that so much happened in world history and in Jewish history that is not recorded in our Torah. Anything that's recorded in our Torah has a specific reason, a specific need. So why is this entire story in great detail? What's the purpose of it being in the Torah? Every word, every letter, as we know. So if it's to fulfill Hashem's decree that he decreed to Abraham that his descendants will be enslaved in Egypt, again, all these details are not so necessary. So fine, we know that Joseph gets to Egypt and that his family follows, but every detail of him preparing this plan and selling all the food and acquiring everybody seems a little extra and almost like there's no need. So Rav Pincus gives a brilliant answer. He says that the reason why Hashem put all this in our Torah is to answer the first question Rashi asks and answers on our Torah. How does the first Rashi start? First Rashi starts by Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak asked, why is it that the Torah did not start from the very first mitzvah given to the Jewish people of HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, the mitzvah of counting the new moon and counting and holding a calendar? Why didn't it start with that? Why did it start the creation of the universe? He answers, because in the future, the nations will come and claim against the Jewish people that you stole our land, the land of Israel, and to prove to them that Hashem is the one who created the universe and the world and everything in it, and it's up to him to decide who his land is given to and not given to. When Hashem decides it's for the Jewish people, it's going to be the Jewish people's. That's why the Torah starts with Bereshit and doesn't start with the 12th chapter in the book of Exodus. There's a whole almost book and a half before then to teach us, to tell us that Hashem is the creator. Hashem decides if I make something, it's mine to decide who I give it to. So therefore, the Torah starts off with Genesis. So the entire point of Genesis, and this is not only the first Torah portion of Bereshit, it's really the entire book of Genesis, Rav Pincus tells us, is there to prove that the universe was created by God and that Hashem is the one who decides that the land of Israel is given to the Jewish people. And now, Hashem just found it fair, Rav Pincus says, even though he doesn't need to explain or prove it, but he finds it fair to prove to the world that Israel belongs to the Jewish people. And in the book of Genesis, Rav Pincus says, there are 3 time periods which actually pertain to the occupation or the ownership of the land of Israel. First, in the generation of Noah. Second, in the generation of our patriarchs. And third, in the generation of our tribes. And he explains each one briefly, very, very nice. He says, the entire world in the time of Noah was destroyed, and Noah acquired the entire globe after the flood. And he was the father. It was him and his children. And then Noah divided up the world and gave to his children and his grandchildren each proper plots of land. Who did he give the land of Israel to? To his grandson, Canaan. That's why the land of Israel was called Canaan before the Jewish people actually occupied it. And Canaan was a son of Ham. Now, the Torah tells us, Genesis chapter 9, verse 26, Vayomer, Baruch Hashem Elokei Shem, V'hi Chenan Eved Lamo. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, where the Jews come from, and may Canaan be a slave to them. What do we see over here, says Reb Leib? Reb Leib says that we see, not Reb Leib, sorry, Reb Pincus. Reb Pincus says that we see over here that the descendants of Canaan, or Canaan itself, was given to the children of Shem. Who are the children of Shem? The Jews come from the children of Shem. Right? We are Semites, coming from the word of Shem, the name of Shem. That's why we're called Semites. And therefore, explains Rav Pincus that he made Canaan a slave to the children of Shem, and the Talmud tells us it's a law that anything a slave acquires belongs to his master. So that was the first of 3 different episodes where the land of Israel was acquired to the Jewish people, number 1. Second, in the time of Abraham, there was a great world war. This probably was the very first world war. It was 4 kings versus 5 kings, and Abraham joined the 5 kings and vanquished the 4. The Ramban Nachmanides tells us that, you know who those 4 kings were? It was Bavel, Babylonia, Pras, Persia, Yavan, Greece, and Edom, which is debatable which region that actually is, same area. But these are the 4 main enemies of the Jewish people, and those 4, explains the Ramban, represented practically the entire world. When Abraham vanquished those kings, in essence, he conquered their territory, let's put it that way, and by result of that, he actually conquered the land of Israel and acquired it, yet now for a second time. So not only did the children of Shem, but Abraham himself did as well. And a third time was by Joseph. This was during the time of the tribes. When Joseph was freed from jail, he was a free man. He was not a slave to Paro. Rav Pincus brings 2 proofs. I'll show it to you on the screen. 2 proofs that Joseph was a free man and he was not freed from jail, yet still a slave to Pharaoh. Number one is in chapter 45, verse 8. He says, "Ve'ata lo atem shlachtem oti hena ki ha'elokim." So when Joseph is appeasing his brothers for selling him as a slave, he was telling him, "You guys didn't send me here to Egypt. This was Hashem. He made me like a father to Pharaoh and a lord over his whole household and a ruler over the entire land of Egypt. Clearly not a slave." Now move over and let's go to the next verse. This actually is earlier. Chapter 42, verse 30. So when the brothers come back for the first time to Jacob, they tell him that the Lord of the land, referring to Joseph, is speaking to us in a very harsh way. They refer to him as Adonai Haaretz, the Lord of the land. Again, not a slave. So Rav Pincus is telling us that Joseph was no slave. So you can't say that anything Joseph acquired belongs to his master Pharaoh. No, on the contrary, he acquired it for himself. And any of the money that he did give to Pharaoh, he did that out of his good grace. He didn't owe it to Pharaoh. So therefore, when we're saying that story about how Joseph was selling food and then when no one had money to pay or property or livestock to pay, he acquired them as slaves. Joseph acquired them as slaves to himself. And he actually explains our sages, Joseph acquired the entire world, including the land of Israel. This plague was not like any other plague. It was very, very hard. And no one was well prepared except for Joseph. We read in the Haggadah, says Rav Pincus, that if we would not have been freed by Hashem from Egypt, we would still be there as slaves until today. Over 3,000 years later, we would still be there as slaves today. I mean, he asks, and nothing could have changed. There couldn't have been an uprising. There couldn't have been a change of powers. Like, why not? He says, we don't understand how powerful and how strong the rulership of Egypt was during that time. Nothing compared to it. There was no way out, no way to loosen out of there, no way to escape. People literally feared that rulership, that reign. And you know why that came about? Until the Great Famine, it was not like that. Egypt was like another country. But ever since the famine happened, Egypt grew as the strongest, mighty power of the entire globe. How come? Because of Joseph. Joseph acquired everything and everyone, but he didn't want to deal with such a headache. He had enough to deal with. He gave most of it, almost all of it, to Pharaoh. But what we do see from here is that Joseph acquired for yet a third time on behalf of the Jewish people the land of Israel. So if Pincus is telling us that certainly the entire book of Bereshit, from beginning to end, doesn't just set the stage of the creation of world and humanity, but most importantly for us, is it explains and proves how the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. First, because God created the entire universe and he chooses where it goes to. Second, Noah acquired it for himself, gave it to his grandson Canaan, and then was given to, because of the curse of Ham, Canaan's father, Canaan was set to be a slave to the children of Shem. Again belongs to Jewish people. Third, Abraham acquired it by conquering it. And fourth, Joseph acquired it again by acquiring everyone as slaves and their land and their livestock as well. We see from here a clear proof over and over and over, this consistent theme in the book of Genesis, how the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. Now, thank God today we have the great opportunity to visit the land of Israel. Some of us live in the land of Israel or have lived in the land of Israel. Something that for many, many, many generations was not possible. Something that many nowadays maybe even take for granted. But we have to realize that that is our homeland. We're in the diaspora. We may be more comfortable here, but this is not our home. There's a reason why we are called the wandering Jews. It's because that's what we do. We wander from place to place because we are not settled until we actually go back home. And even back home, believe it or not, even back in the land of Israel, even the land of Israel is in galut, is in exile, because the land of Israel is not the way it should ideally be. I mean, Rav Leib spoke about this a couple weeks ago, how the land of Israel is controlled by Zionists. Not that Zionist is a bad thing, but Zionists which are anti-Torah and anti halacha. So there's that issue over there. So there's a lot of politics and corruption, like in every country, but the land of Israel is not run the way it should be. But we have to understand that that is our home. It's our heritage. We connect to Hashem not only through our Torah, but through the land. And more importantly, not just through the land, but through our Torah. And because of that, we have to realize and be confident that the land belongs to us, because of the 4 reasons that we just proved in the book of Genesis. And I'll repeat them so that you know, if anyone ever asks you, or if you ever doubt yourself. Number 1 is that first Rashi in the beginning of our Torah, that Hashem created the universe and the world. He chooses who it goes to. Number 2, Noah gave it to his grandson Canaan, who became a slave to the children of Shem because of the sin of his father Ham, by gazing at his father in his drunkenness and his nakedness. That's number 2. Number 3, Abraham conquered it. And number 4, Joseph acquired it again. Those 4 proofs prove how the land of Israel belongs to us. We have to be proud. We have to take our children, our grandchildren to the land of Israel so they can see it, so they can experience it. There's so much rich history, great tour guides for us to go and see all of the beauty of the land of Israel. And when we go to the land of Israel, to remember that we are, of course, we're experiencing a physical enjoyment and connection, but the experience that we experience in Israel transcends a physical one, and it is coupled with a spiritual experience and high of going back and being in the places where our forefathers were, where our own grandparents and great-grandparents and generations fought wars, won wars. Unfortunately, they're exiles, great times, hard times, so rich in history that when we go, we have to just pause and just soak it all up, because it is a very important part of our heritage and our connection to Hashem. So may Hashem bless us that very soon we'll be able to visit again the land of Israel, hopefully live in the land of Israel, and that Hashem will make the land of Israel as He intended it for it to be, a place full of Torah, full of mitzvot, of love, unity, peace, and happiness for the entire world, specifically for the Jewish people. So may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us all to return home, B'ezrat Hashem, soon to the land of Israel, and that we will see the coming of the Mashiach in our own days. B'mira b'yamenu. Amen.